watching Morning at NTV.
Good morning. Welcome back to Morning at NTV. My name is Malaki Vilodera. Now, this week is the Women's Week. It is a biannual event that was actually launched way back in 2012. And so it coincides with a particular report that is known as the Gender Assessment Report. And it's all about how we can forge forward the conversation of women getting a fair and an equal position as men in society. And so to break that down and to talk about that is Madam Rita Achiro, who is the Executive Director of the Uganda Women's Network. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning. How are the celebrations coming through? It's now the third day.
Yeah, it's the fifth day.
Okay.
We started last week with school outreaches. We went out to different schools talking to young people about leadership, about personal empowerment, and a number of issues, employment, how to create self-employment. So we've reached out to over about 7,000 students in the last week. And this week, yesterday, we started with opening ceremony. But just before that, actually on Friday last week, we also had prayers with the Interreligious Council for the Women of Uganda, but also for the Interreligious Council and all the institutions therein, to start thinking about issues of women's rights and gender equality in the churches, in the mosques, in the temples, and all the other worship spaces as part of the religious groups. Yeah.
And what's the reception like, especially when it comes to the legal space? I know we still have a long way to go.
The reception, I think people have come to the realization that progress will not be made until women are part of that progress. Even the most conservative spaces that we thought wouldn't be talking about these things, for example, the Interreligious Council and its membership, you find that different faith groups, of course, the Bible has its version, the Quran has its version of women being submissive, and the misinterpretation by some people. But now they are coming to understand that actually women need to be part of this development process. They need to be part of the leadership in those structures. And partly the reason why they have not made so much progress is because the women have been left behind.
Right.
And they are now agreeing that it is important that women are not just worshippers, but are part of decision making.
But how do we
and building the
how then can they start on that particular journey of just embracing women and acknowledging that we cannot have progress or success in whatever project unless we bring them in? What are some of the pointers that you're telling them to follow through, especially when it comes to religious leaders? I know it's a sensitive space there.
One, it takes understanding and education, acceptability, that women are not coming to challenge their power. The reason why there's a lot of resistance many times is because people think women come to challenge power. Power can be shared and shared in harmony, but once people have fear, then they push back. Now, the comfort that we need to give them and they need to accept is that women are part of this development, and this power can be shared without threatening each other. The other is, of course, putting in place structures and systems that accommodate women. Most of these structures and systems are very patriarchal, that deter women from effective participation and influence. You know, participating is one thing.
Right.
Influence is the most important thing. Women participate over 80% in all the spaces, but do they actually influence the spaces is what we're looking at now.
You spoke about participation, and especially when it comes to agriculture, farming, land acquisition, land ownership. We have a long way to go, because with regards to this particular report now on land ownership, men actually have the bigger chunk, and women 73.4% actually of the men own the land in the country.
True. And that is a study that we did as Uganda Women's Network, the gender assessment. And the report was launched yesterday. It will be out soon. One of the things that this Women's Week has done differently is to bring to the fore research studies that give evidence to the issues we've been talking about. Yesterday in the morning, we had 4 presentations on research That is one, land was one of them.
Right.
The other is agribusiness, how women are doing. The other is around social norms and violence against women. And all these researches show there's a huge disparity between men and women. Whether it is violence, whether it's land ownership, whether it's women in leadership, there's a huge disparity. In terms of leadership, we are between 34 and 35. And as you know, the Constitution provides for 30%.
Right.
So we're just slightly above 30%. And yet, when you look at the population of women, we're at 51.7%, close to 52%. So there is nothing that reflects the numbers of women in anything, apart from an issue that the study brought up in one of our public universities, Makerere. We now have the female students at almost 65%. But that is just one university, and that is just the creme de la creme. The majority are at the bottom. So whether we're talking about the social issues, the political issues, the economic issues, women are still lagging behind.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a day that we were having that particular topic, and the beauty is we are on ground, and so we were asking men, would you let your daughter inherit your land? And you know, a majority said no. So where do we start this conversation?
That's very true. I'm sure all our viewers out there know about 80% of our land in this country is owned under customary tenure. That means the land is owned according to a particular custom. Now, we all know that our customs are patriarchal. We all know that our families, we are patrilineal. So you follow your father's lineage. And because they are patriarchal, that means that it's the boy child who is seen as the heir and all that, and it has been there for generations.
Right.
So it's not something we are going to change over time. It's going to take us some time. We've had the Constitution for 23 years now, but we still have women at less than 30% owning and controlling land.
Yeah.
So that means there's still work to do. But also just to say that there's progress that has been made. Because even the 25% we're talking now, it's because women have purchased land on their own. So what does that mean? It means if women get access to education, if women get access to employment and money, whether you bequeath land to them or not, they will definitely get land. That is a given.
Right.
But also, we need to start changing the culture that it is only boys who can inherit land. Because the productivity of that land is held by the women. And I'm not surprised at all that we have food shortage in this country, we have food insecurity, we have poverty, because people are holding on to land just because they fear for women to own that land. And yet if you release this land to women and they feel the sense of ownership, they feel the sense of control, the productivity, I am very sure, will triple.
On the issue of financial inclusion, we're still lagging behind as women, and the numbers are quite appalling. And I'm wondering, we are in, this particular century, and you're expecting we need to be included. I thought that women are already included, but with the statistics, it's quite worrying, especially in Karamoja. 97% of the men are financially included, but only 3%. 3% of women are included financially.
Yeah. That tells you a lot. That tells you, by the way, financial inclusion does not just come. There are other factors that contribute to that. One of them is education, the culture, the systems, the law, the rule of law within those spaces. All that, and that's why Karamoja, of course, for a very long time, is part of our country that has really, really lagged behind. And the statistics are not surprising. So there's need, and that's why we're doing that type of research, for us to be able to work with government, but also as civil society, to have interventions that make meaning to the people.
Right.
Yeah.
When it comes to financial inclusion, I'm just thinking top of mind, would it help to have this, breakdowns early enough when young girls are just in school, to have such, knowledge imparted on them? Would it help?
One thing, of course, is not part of the research, but generally we all know that money has been an issue for women. Women who have money have been called names. Women fear money. If I have money, I will not be married. A man will fear me. If I have property, the man will fear me. So that psychology, which unfortunately under socialization, that we've been taken through, that you can't own land, if you have money it's bad, if men will fear you, you drive a good car, a man, all those, and that has deterred women. But now more women are getting into the economic space. So what we need to do differently is to release and create an environment where women can thrive in economic activities. Also ensure that the education system that is offered gives employment opportunities, job creation. We don't all have to be in offices, in companies or wherever.
Right.
I can have my own business. You can have your own business. And there's so much to do in this country that everybody can actually make money.
I was interacting with some of the students in school, and for the girls, I ended up asking them, where do you see yourself in the next 15 years, 20 years? And most of them, the first answer was to be a wife and a mother, So in terms of mentorship, do you feel like the women who now know it, who have, who are up there, are doing enough to mentor them that are coming into that space? Are we doing enough? If we still have children who say that, my first priority, my first goal when I grow up is to become a wife and a mother.
I at times, the reason why I'm laughing, so much has been put on the women. What are the women doing? Are you mentoring other women? We have mentored. I have been mentored. Other people have been mentored. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't mentored.
Right.
So the women are doing something, including right from our mothers. They have tried their best. But there is a responsibility of the state to provide that opportunity for every child, boy or girl, to have the same opportunity. And that is the environment we want, where girls feel free, where girls can go to school and they feel protected, where girls go to school and their teachers are not abused and they would rather stay home, where girls, when they're in their menstrual cycle, do not fear to go to school. So all that, the mentorship really needs to start from the basics, but there's the environment within which these girls grow. And that is what we need to do. Mentorship is crucial, and as women's rights organizations, we're trying to do our best. We talk to mothers, we go to communities, we engage them, we tell them it's your responsibility to support even government. By the way, it's not on a government issue.
Right.
To support government to ensure these children go to school.
Right.
Yeah.
But at times I think that it's the mothers who draw us back. Some of them that are very cultural,
True.
They will tell you, what, you can't do a PhD because where will you get a husband from?
But recently, you just see one of, I don't know whether it's true, but one of our young women who decided, because of pressure, she just decided to put up like a wedding.
Marry herself.
Because she's 32, 33.
Yeah.
And, that's the type of pressure. And for her, at least, she's even got an education. I think she's even doing her master's or something like that. Imagine a 12-year-old whose breasts are just coming out and they say, oh, now she's ready for marriage because she's seen her first periods. Right. That starts at home. It's not a government. It's you at home who is doing that. And therefore, as community, as parents, we have a responsibility to keep these children in school.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of discrimination even when it comes to health service delivery. And this report actually, when you see the statistics, it's worrying. And we know that in the rural areas, things to do with teenage marriage, teenage pregnancies is a high issue. But once we have these girls who unfortunately get pregnant, once they go to the health services, they're still discriminated upon.
True, and that is part of the what I would call the gender socialization of all of us. By the way, the misconception about women and girls is not only a men's issue. It includes me and you. Some women actually do not have a clue that they are discriminating against women themselves. So at times when women say you are your enemies, yes, I accept, because women, or girls and boys, when we are growing up in our villages, in our communities, we are socialized the same. I grew up in the same environment.
Right.
So there's no distinction that because I'm a girl, the information I get is different from what the boy gets. When they tell the boy, go read your books for you first cook food, it's the same information I'm getting. So when I grow up, my role, I'll know that my role is to cook and the boy, you know, does other things. Or somebody's sick, it is the girl who will stay home today. And therefore we grow up knowing that we are the caretakers, we are the caregivers. And that definitely has issues. When you go to the health center, unfortunately, some of our health personnel do not understand the sensitivity of these issues. When you get a teenage mother, how to handle them. I know the Ministry of Health is trying to manage, have teenage corners and all that, but there are individuals who work in these spaces and have never been exposed to any training to handle such people.
Right.
And they'll, you know, insult them, they'll beat them up, they'll tell them all sorts of things that traumatize them. And it really puts down the girl child. Yet the boy, on the other side, has been left scot-free, probably in school.
Right. And still in school, there's still worry right there, because we know that even issues to do with, you know, sexual abuse stems from there. You're in schools, but the teachers then, you know, make advances. Some of them even impregnate these children. How best can we safeguard our girls and just create safe spaces for them? If now churches have become, you know, risky for them, schools are risky for them, the home as well is risky for them, how do we go about creating safe spaces for our girl child?
This impunity can't stop. It can only stop if we actually take a step forward and bring to book the perpetrators, and everybody knows that if I did X, this is the consequence. But the minute people know, for example, the teachers who abuse, and I thank NTV for some of these stories. Last week there was this 10-year-old, I think she's in P4, P5, who was abused by a head teacher.
Right.
It is just not bearable. If such a person is got punished, even if he has a degree, whatever, his license is totally cancelled. You do 1, 2, 3, 10, 100, 1,000,000 of those, believe you me, things will change. But the minute that somebody defiles a school, where P4 is transferred to another school, or the other day they hear he is left moving scot-free.
Right.
We have university lecturers who have abused girls arrested. They are back in the lecture room. People don't care. People just don't care.
But where do we start from? We report these cases to security.
That's what the point I'm trying to stress.
Yeah.
Is that we need to implement the laws as they are. If they say you defiled and the punishment for aggravated defilement is death or life imprisonment, let it be. But the minute somebody has the punishment is, I don't believe in death penalty though. If you believe it's life imprisonment, let the person be there. And people will get. And even one of the things that we need to do differently, and this is really for the experience from our work, is parents who aid these things need to be brought to book. We have heard and seen parents who negotiate. You even saw the story that NTV ran.
Right,
the mother was being, you know, pursued by the family to negotiate, and they'll give you all sorts of things. So there has to be a lot more stricter laws and implementation, which is very crucial.
Implementation, and that's where we lack.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the corporate world, and we still know that as women we grapple to get equal share. So you'll come to a job interview, same roles, get employed on the same day with your male counterpart, but when you look at the contracts and the remuneration, the man is getting even double what you're getting, and the roles are the same. So where do we start off this conversation? Who is to blame? Are we the ones who don't negotiate well enough?
You know, I had just told you that women fear money.
Yes.
And that fear is one thing we need to deal with. That money is not bad, so long as you get it the right way. But also, women fear to negotiate. At times we feel or put our price too low. Many times I sit on interview panels and I ask somebody, what is your value for this job? Said, you see, you could give me this, but we can't negotiate. You see,
Yeah.
Set your value, and if you're confident and you know what you're going to do, let it be there. But many times we take whatever comes because we think we are less of a value than the men. Having said that, institutions also take advantage of women.
Right.
Because they know our weakness, and therefore they will give you whatever they have. So what can we do differently? I know in public service there's no discrimination, because public service has its scales in terms of salary. Don't ask me who gets what position, because that now becomes another thing.
Right.
If there is a better position, then you'll definitely see a man there. But I think private sector government needs to actually monitor private sector. This is happening more in the private sector. And now with the influx of investors and of course even the civil society and all that, there has to be a standard set for our salaries or for any type of job, even our house helps.
Right.
Yes, we need a minimum wage.
It actually worries me, even in the business space. You will apply for a bid or a tender, and when you go to the table, now that the woman has, more value to bring on the table and the man doesn't have, then you're also told, you know what, fine, you know what, you can negotiate, and still they mark you down. So with regards to that, what can you tell women today in terms of them just standing by their value? And I learned it's okay to say no, it's fine. If you're not giving me my value, walk away.
You see, we need, and that's what I spend my time, most of my colleagues out there spend their time, to give women this self-confidence, build their esteem, because it starts right from your self-confidence and your esteem, for you to be able to even challenge and say, I'm worth this, to say no to certain things. And I'm telling you, this patriarchy is everywhere, everywhere, including us who think we are very empowered, who work in empowered spaces. You see that discrimination all around you. You just need to be sensitive to know that actually this is discrimination. Including resourcing for women's rights. Those who say they give money to government, to civil society, you see discrimination when it comes to women's rights issues. So you have to justify yourself beyond reasonable doubt. I have those fights everywhere. I have the fights in the communities. I have the fights within civil society. I have the fight within government. I have the fight within the donor community, trying to justify that we have a problem here and we need to solve it together. But many times, the way I explain my issues, the amount of time is not the same like the men would do.
Right.
So the issue of patriarchy is everywhere, and it should be everybody's responsibility. Even in the academia, where we expect the most educated people, but you still see the discrimination. So it's still a big fight that we need to move on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. As we come to a close, what should we be expecting from the Women's Week?
Well, the Women's Week, one of the big things you've already talked about, we have that study that is going to give us a sense of direction. But also between today and Friday, we are going to have about 37 different topics discussed. We're sitting at Hotel Africana, and this is really to help women understand the deeper issues. Women have come from all over the country to understand the deeper issues, to be exposed, to think more critically. So what we are going to do is, from all these discussions, that is going to inform our action agenda as women in the development process. We are in the process of reviewing the NDP2 and developing the NDP3. NDP is the National Development Plan. We want this time round, the National Development Plan should speak to women and should focus on human development. For a very long time, government has done a lot with infrastructure. But this infrastructure is going to go to waste minus a human capital that can utilize this infrastructure for development going forward. We would also want to see that these issues that we're discussing here will inform our regional intervention. We work both at national, regional, and international. So our issues, what we're gathering is going to help us pick our issues for the East African region, for the Africa region, and the international level, including the monitoring of the SDGs.
All right, okay. And are women open to come, them that
Sure.
are listening right now?
Yes.
Is it free entry?
Yes,
Okay.
you're most welcome.
Hotel what?
Africana.
Hotel Africana.
Yes.
Thank you so much for making time, Madam
Thank
Rita Achiro, the Executive Director of Uganda Women's Network. That has been the conversation. Morning at NTV still continues. Up next is Reality on the Ground with Andrew Chamagero. Keep it here.
You're watching Morning at NTV.